Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy Tuesday. Hope all of you are doing fantastic on this Tuesday morning, January 20th. 20 days into the year. Life is good. Hope you guys are doing well. Excited to talk to you guys a little bit today about some trading Tuesdays. So I got my BY DeFi account pulled up here. And as you guys can see, it's a totally different story compared to last week when all of this stuff over here was in the green. Man, it's kind of frustrating. Uh, Woke up this morning seeing $90,000 Bitcoin and seeing all of these trades in the red. The Canton trade that we did last week got liquidated, lost 100% on that trade. That happens sometimes. I mistakenly really started to feel like the market was going to be going up. And it just seems like, guys, do as I say, not as I do, because every time I talk about doing these trades, I always stress the importance of doing the ladder. And last week I didn't do any ladders. I just did the Canton trade all on its own. And I mean, technically, I don't have any ladders in on any of these trades right now, so they're all, technically just one bad dump on Bitcoin's behalf from getting liquidated. I've got this link position here, only 142 bucks tied up in it, but it's down now, 28%. This was in the green relatively significantly. I want to say that this was all the way up at around 100% profit, at least 75% profit when we were talking last week. The only thing still in the green is the Atom trade here, just barely hanging on. The Avalanche is underwater 64%. So, like, the nice thing about the Avalanche trade is on accident, I did why can't I think of the word, cross leverage instead of isolated. And so, like, my liquidation price on the Avalanche right now is down at like $4.74. So I'm not too worried about it. But I mean, look at this. We thought Avalanche was a decent looking trade. We got in it at $14 and now it's down to $12.28. Dot we got into, at 204, which we thought was pretty solid. It was down in the 170, 180 cent range, and then it popped up a little bit. Now it's all the way back down to, 192. I say the only thing that we've got in play that is not underwater is Atom, which we got at 228 and it's at 231. So it has been a rough week for crypto. I don't know, maybe Tuesdays is a bad day to do this on because it just seems like 9 out of 10 weeks we are on a downswing when it comes to these, the Tuesdays. It just seems like Tuesdays are way more often a sea of red than they are a nice little pump of green. What do we got going on here in the chats today? We got Mr. Dave P in the house. Good morning, Dave. Hey, Dave, don't worry about it, man. I know that you're working hard. You're doing the best that you can. And it's definitely not your fault. It's my fault for not doing any ladder trades. I mean, in this market, everything is just getting slaughtered. And, that's part of the fun. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys. This cryptocurrency market is really taking a toll on my emotions. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not like depressed or like, hating life or anything, but holy smokes, this has been a test. When I got in crypto back in, 2016, really started going at it hard in 2017, got to experience a little bit of the bull market from, 17 going into 18. That first bear market, when everything turned in January of 18 and 19 and 20, and going into 21, towards the end of 20. So I had all of 18, all of 19, and most of 2020. During that bear run, it was all new and exciting. And I also didn't have any money invested in crypto. So in 17 going into 18, uh, I was excited by the pump, but I literally, had a few $100s in the market that turned into a few $1,000s. So when January of 18 rolled around, I wasn't anywhere near in good financial shape as far as having taken advantage of that bull market. You know, I've told the story, a few times before. Yeah, I had a buddy that got involved in crypto back in 16, but he hit it hard. And in early 17, you can go back and see this for yourself. He was buying Ethereum at $9 back in February of 2017. Bitcoin hadn't made anywhere near its big run. I think back in February of 17, you could have been buying Bitcoin for a couple $1,000 in that ballpark, maybe even less. I know that in August of 16, I bought some Bitcoin at about $500 a Bitcoin. Unfortunately, I didn't know what I had a hold of, and I was using the Bitcoin to pay another platform, which ended up being a Ponzi scheme. And so I pretty much just lost. It wasn't a ton of money. I think I put about $1,000 worth of Bitcoin into this platform that ended up not being legit. But anyways, my point is in 18, 19, and 20, as the market kept going down, I just kind of kept getting more and more excited because it was an opportunity to buy. Like I just dollar cost averaged all the way down. And then every time it had a big dump, I thought, okay, beautiful, we're going to buy and it's going to go back up. And then, man, for 3 years, it just kept going down. And it was a little discouraging, but at the same time, I had this unshakable faith, 100%, no doubt, that crypto was going to come roaring back. And sure enough, it did. This has been different, though, because of a couple things. Number one, I can verify that, like, if you just live paycheck to paycheck, you're kind of on the struggle bus a lot of your life. Never quite enough money at the end of the month. Like, if you've ever been in those spots where you've ever needed to take a payday loan, to cover a few bills, or, you're in a spot where maybe you've got your bills paid, but, you have to like decide at the end of the month, hey, if I want to take my wife out to a nice dinner, or do I want to pay the electric bill? Or, I was mentioning that I put a post out on my Facebook, a poll a while back about vacations, asking people how long has it been since you've taken a vacation, or how often do you take a vacation? And it was like, multiple times a year, once a year, once every 2 years, once every 5 years. And like, what's a vacation? And I was pretty surprised at how many people put the answer as, every 5 years, or even what is a vacation. And my point is, when everything went up in 2021, I had more money by a long ways than I'd ever had in my life. And man, we really enjoyed 2021. We went on a couple of cruises. We went on a trip to the Bahamas. We took my son for his 15th birthday, and his girlfriend and my parents and my daughter all to Orlando, Florida, for Universal Studios and Disney World, and so on and so forth. And a lot of nice restaurants. Like, my wife and I love good steak. So we were going to a lot of expensive steakhouses in Las Vegas. I spent probably $300 or $400 on dozens of meals, and then had a couple of special occasions where it was more like, $500 to $800 on a meal. I took my parents out one night to a real nice steakhouse, and it wasn't like the most expensive thing in the world, but it probably ran us including tip and everything, it was like $500 or $600, which to my parents was an obscene amount of money to spend on a meal. And so you get used to living life like that, and then you have November of 2021 roll around, and then by February of 2022, Bitcoin is retraced from 68 to around 42, and everything's crashing. And so I ain't gonna lie, this last from November of 21 to now, we got we're talking about over 4 years now. Things have definitely been different. It deteriorated really quickly. So from November of 21, when we hit the all-time high, to probably maybe March or April of 22, I was still living relatively high on the hog, if you will. But my portfolio balance was going down the whole time. But I didn't start getting worried about it until probably when we got down to around $100,000 worth of portfolio. That's when I started like, man, it's only April of 2022. If we got 100 grand that has to last for a couple more years, and then that 100 grand, unlike like an idiot in a way. I mean, I'll just call a spade a spade. I even had a friend that was like, dude, you got $100,000 and it's all in crypto. He's like, that's insane right now. You don't know how low this is going to go. So, part of the pain that I went through for the last 4 years was not knowing. It was my own fault. Had I had any idea what was coming, I could have certainly cashed out enough towards the top to ride out the storm relatively well. But literally that 100 grand, between spending it on life and it continuing to go down, disappeared, fairly quickly. And ever since then, it's been an interesting 4 years. Still had a pretty good life, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but I guess what I am telling you guys is I am frustrated, like probably like the rest of you. I come on here a lot of days trying to, give you guys hope and be positive and excited. And I still am for the long term, but I guess, man, I'm really in the short term, I'm starting to go out of my mind a little bit and lose my patience and be like, are you kidding me? Like when? Like that's just the great big huge one word question that keeps coming to my mind is when? Like, guys, I don't know about you, but by now we're all supposed to be financially independent again. I should have as much money, if not more money, than I did at the peak of the last bull run. But unfortunately, things don't always play out the exact same way that they did in previous cycles. The cycle of 17 going into 18, the altcoins had an absolutely incredible, massive run. The altcoin season in 20 going into 21 was also pretty spectacular. Not maybe as good in some ways as the 17-18, but it was still pretty massive. And and I had some big winners. I got into the gains platform at, I don't remember, I think it was 3 cents, and that ran up to at 80. It ran all the way up to about $1.80, but I think I sold the majority of my tokens by around 80 cents. But I was still like, I turned $3,000 into, I think it was around 80 grand or something like that. And then I had the Blocktopia, where I got $1,000 invested in a Blocktopia, and unfortunately they didn't honor the vesting schedule, but I was still able to take $200 worth of that token that I received. I got about 20% of the tokens that I was supposed to get, and I was still able to sell those for around 50 grand. And then, like I said, I had lots of different winners. I had DAG Constellation, which, was about, I think it was 100 or 150x. I didn't sell it all the way at the peak, but I still did incredibly well. And I guess, my point is here is I just don't know what to tell you guys anymore. Like, I want to be optimistic. I want to be positive. Um, I'm almost certain, like the way that the world is going, like there's no doubt in my mind that eventually things have to pop off. But at the same time, guys, we need to start looking at the possibility that the only altcoins that are really going to start doing massive things are, 10 or 15 or 25 of the top blockchains. If somebody came to me and said, so I know I'm talking a lot, but if we go back to 17 or 18, if somebody would have told me, hey, all I'm going to do is buy Bitcoin, I'm never going to buy anything else, I would have probably told them that that was a bad move, that they were crazy. Now I'm not so sure that I could look somebody in the eye and tell them that they're better off buying some other things. Granted, if they just buy Bitcoin, they're probably not going to get rich quick. But if you want to be rich in 10, 15 years, I would never put another dollar into my 401k if I didn't have to, or like if your employer allowed you to buy Bitcoin through your 401k, I would never buy another stock again. I've never been more convinced that Bitcoin is going to be a 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, $15 million coin. I listened to a Michael Saylor interview, 2-hour Michael Saylor interview a few days ago, and I showed that to you guys. Maybe it's a couple of weeks. I showed that video to you so you guys could look it up. After watching him talk about Bitcoin, in my opinion, for the long term, there's just absolutely nothing even close to as good of an investment as Bitcoin. And if I look back, because I've had some big wins, but remember, like Blocktopia, I turned $50 into 50,000, but I've also had a ton of private sales that just rugged. Like even right now, I've got one called, what was it called? Whitley. And then it turned into Meta Movers. Now it's Listy. And I helped that company raise a couple $100,000. There's a lot of you watching this that have invested a few hundred, but I literally I've got my cousin invested 10 grand. I've got a bunch of money in. I got a bunch of my friends, my brother-in-law, invested 5 grand. We invested this money back in 2023. It's been 2022. 2022, some of you invested in it later, but I got involved in it in 2022 early. Love you, son. Have a good day, buddy. Anyways, so I've lost a ton of money too. Like for every, great big huge win that I've had in private sales and in altcoins and stuff, I've also got, a ton that, just have done absolutely nothing or have, gone all the way out of business. The private sales there hasn't been a profitable private sale for the last couple of years. Really, really frustrating because I've got, lots of gains tokens and I'm in on their launch pad and it's just refund after refund after refund. Thank God they've got that refund clause in there so that, we're not just getting stomped and losing 90% of our money, every sale, but at the same time, you're still tying up capital. You're using, creates opportunity costs, and like wondering if the Gains platform and launch pads like Seedify and some of those launch pads, if they're going to be able to stay in business, if there's ever going to be a time where these private sales start doing well again. And so this, this trading stuff is crazy. Like I say, we go back to the page here. It's just, one short week ago, all of these were in the green and looked like they were potentially going to really do something, special, that we could make a nice chunk of money with a small chunk of money. And now it's just like, what's going on? So having said all of that, I don't know what your guys' strategies are, but, I'm trying to do some some buying and holding because I'm kind of getting tired of the trading. And I'm not going to say that what's the wording for it? I haven't resigned myself to believing that there's not going to be a bull market until after the next Bitcoin halving. So I haven't resigned myself to saying that I'm not going to be a crypto millionaire before 2030. But at the same time, I'm beginning to wonder if it's going to happen before 2030. And so one of the things that I'm doing, not trading wise, but I'm slowly, like, I'm starting to buy a little bit of Bitcoin. And I kind of want to be in the camp of, like, the Bitcoin is like never going to get sold. I mean, I want to leverage it at some point, maybe borrow against it, do different stuff, but I am starting to buy more Bitcoin. Ethereum is another one that I think you can sneak a little money into. I definitely am not just a Bitcoin maximalist though. So I am accumulating Chainlink. Accumulating Chainlink. I think Chainlink is going to be a good one for the future. I'm accumulating a little bit of Avalanche. I've been accumulating some VeChain, some Polkadot, some Atom, especially, Polkadot and Atom, because of the ability to stake them and earn some good interest. But I'm definitely starting to, I did that interview a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago with the Metis, with one of the founders of Lays AI, who is also one of the founders of Metis. And that reminded me, Metis is down at, I forget, $5 or so a token. And it used to be a $300 token. And I think it's going to have some good potential. So I bought a few Metis. So I've been spending more of my extra funds just buying stuff that if I got to hold it all the way till 2030, I'm okay with that. I'm not looking forward to that being the case. But, that's kind of, in my opinion, really, that was my strategy back when I first started. I didn't do any of this trading stuff for the first 3 or 4 years of my cryptocurrency journey, probably more than that, from 17, 18, all the way until 23. So probably the first 5, 6 years of my cryptocurrency, all I did was buy and hold until it made sense to take some profit and roll things into other stuff. I haven't looked at, like, my profit and loss. I have no idea how much money I've lost trading since we started this Trader Tuesdays about a year and a half ago. But I'm going to guess I've lost money. I've had some big wins. I've had some, I've done okay in a few spots. But for the most part, because I'm trying to hold it long term until it becomes significant money, it just always kind of keeps going back. If I was taking profit every time something was at 100%, 200%, 300%, I could probably say that I would be in the positive over the last year and a half. But at this point in time, I'm pretty sure if I went back through and looked at all of my exchange accounts, that I'm definitely underwater on my trades for the last year and a half. I'm probably underwater on a lot of my holds too, but at least the holds aren't liquidated. That money's not gone forever on the holds. Even if $100 is turned into 10, you have the potential of that 10 going back up to your 100 and even, up to 1,000 and so on and so forth. So I really, I'm not going to give you guys any advice on what to trade today. I'm probably not going to make any moves. I don't know if this thing's going from 90 back down into the 80s or if it's going to head back up. And I'm a little bit over it. I just think with the money that I have, I would rather just buy some tokens that are slaughtered. Like, even, like these tokens that I have a trade in on, rather than of spending, this money on this Chainlink trade, I could have just bought 10 or 15 Chainlink and no matter how low the price went, not really cared, because I know in the long term that it's all going to turn out okay. So with that, guys, I don't know if you got any value out of this or not. I know I'm day 2 of the 75 hard. I drank half a gallon of water this morning. I'm bursting at the seams. It's only been, you know, about 35 minutes, but I'm about ready to hop off of here. I do want to say one other thing real quick before I go, though, on the passive income thing. We talked about the fact that we were going to be doing more towards creating passive income. So one of the bright spots, one of the positive things in my life, I need my chair to be up higher, don't I? Or the camera to be something. Let me get rid of this, even though I'm going to talk about this. But Texit Coin has definitely been one of the positive things in my life over the last 6 months. It's probably, you know, brought in around $60,000 worth of income. You know, I'm up to about 55 miners that are creating passive income on a daily basis. I've got 5 trusted smart chain nodes that are, you know, helping validate that network. And I love the tokenomics on the trusted smart chain. It's got the just about the exact same tokenomics as Bitcoin. 21 million tokens. It's going to take over 100 years to mine every token. They have incredible utility. They're a real world asset project. It's something that I'm going to start talking about a little bit more on the channel. I need to really get you guys informed on these trusted smart chain nodes. I've watched the nodes go from about $3,000 a node all the way up to $3,700. Every 1,000 nodes they sell, the price goes up by $100. And so I've watched the price over the last few months go from 3,000 a node all the way up to $3,700 a node. And there's only 200,000 nodes available. So there's a lot of things that we're going to do to create passive income and to really take this channel to the next level. So with that, guys, I love and appreciate each and every one of you. And we will talk to you again very soon. Hope you had a good time here today and continue to have a good day. Bye-bye for now.